everyone and welcome back. My name of course is Resonant and welcome back to another video on Of Kings and Men. So the game has had a couple of days in beta, giving us the opportunity to play. Because of this, I thought it would be appropriate to give my first impressions of the gameplay and mechanics of Kings and Men. Of course, it's just the first impressions, which needs to be remembered as things will change and my views and thoughts will also change as I get more used to the aspects of the game. This is my honest feedback for the devs and players, but in the end it's just one person's opinion. Remember that. First, let's talk about graphics. Now, as many of you will have seen in the gameplay trailers, this game looks beautiful, and it's nothing short in the real thing. Armor texture is on point with scales showing individual textures, so in other words, actually looking like scales, not just a big blob of texture with a few crude scales drawn on. Even chainmail gets down to the minute detail of every ring and every link in the armor. For me, padded and cloth armor are the most pleasing in terms of detail. The creasing of peasant tunics to the stitches in the padded leggings give a realistic feel. I spent a massive part of my time just looking at all the detail on as many of the armors and weapons as possible. Although the ground texture in itself could do with a bit of improving at parts, the puddles, grass and rocks scattering the battlefield have very powerful and impressive graphical fidelity. This brings me to reflections. For me personally, my favourite thing is to fight in the sunset, with the orange glow of the sun shining off armour, reflecting from the rims of puddles just adds to the really nice feeling of the game. And the reflections in this game are beautiful, as you can see in the gameplay in the background. So overall for me, the graphics are brilliant thus far. I have to say, when I first loaded up the game, the menu music that greeted me really put me into the medieval mood for my playing session. I would love to find out who creates the music for this game, as many of you know I'm a music creator myself, and I have made a number of the background and instrumental compositions that I use in my videos. So I do love a good piece of music. Sounds in general in the game are nice and fit to the type of game this is, although I have a few issues with timing of said sounds. Hitting with some weapons is absolutely fine, yet others can be a bit quiet, and blocking and glancing sometimes feel a bit out of time. This can be easily fixed, so isn't a massive issue, but I would say effects need to be a bit sharper and more responsive. A small side note with the sounds, the shouting needs a bit more bass in my opinion, as I feel it's a bit weak in its current state. I'm going to use a technical word here and say more bass would add more oomph into the shouting and make it feel more like a bloodthirsty warrior charging at his foes. At the current stage of the game, there's very little background sounds to accompany you in game unless you're in the combat. That makes it feel quite quiet and very desolate. Maybe louder sounds would fix this and help improve the atmosphere of the game. I'm just going to play you a short clip of the start of a battle, and this is pure raw footage from the gameplay. All my sound volume music turned up, and this is literally everything you hear at the start of a battle, and you'll hear how quiet and desolate it sounds. Now on to combat. Combat for the game needs improvement if I'm going to be honest. At its current stage, while it's fun and playable, skilled duels and battles are rare, as for me at least, it takes a lot of time to get used to the combat. Being slower than games such as Mount and Blade, although it does have a bit of speed once you've got used to it, the combat has much bigger emphasis on timing, as spam hitting is just out of the question. In my opinion, this is a very good thing, but after a few hours of playing, I still haven't become used to the way you must fight. Obviously, this is just me not being able to quite get used to it, but actually playing a bit more later on, I've started to currently get a bit more used to the combat, and I'm starting to get a lot more kills in my gameplay. Ghost hitting is a problem that can be solved, but every now and then I would hit and it would go through a player, so hit detection does need a little bit of work. For me, archery is nice. Shooting a longbow is very different to shooting a shortbow, as holding a shot on a longbow just isn't possible. Due to the massive amount of draw weight once pulled back, the player must shoot in a short window before having to slack the bow again, as you cannot withstand such great weight. Obviously this window is longer on a short bow because it's a lot easier to pull back. Shooting seems responsive and very satisfying seeing your enemy fall to the ground after being struck by an arrow. It takes a bit of practice to get to know the aiming, as there is no crosshair, so judging distance and angle is important. I think personally this is what I'll be mostly using later on in the full game, as at the current stage I'm pretty much useless in melee. A number of people have said the combat feels a bit floaty, which personally I haven't felt too much, but it definitely needs some improvement to get the combat up to scratch with other games of this genre. But remember, this isn't even fully released yet, so there is a lot of work that can be done. Other mechanics in the game include shield bashing and kicking, but these are more advanced combat skills. You'll probably need to include these later on in more advanced battles, as it requires even more precise timing than your typical sword slash. Shields in general need improving, as they're far too overpowered in my opinion. As you can see in the gameplay, I take a number of good hits from the enemy onto my shield, yet I don't experience any breaks. Also, your shield is up 90% of the time, and even just holding attack will make sure your shield is up, which adds to the historical accuracy of how soldiers actually used to fight, but it doesn't make the game as even as it needs to be. Whilst with many weapons holding right click to block and left click to attack is the thought way of playing, I found that using the left mouse button to do everything actually works better for me. This also seems to make the right mouse button pretty much useless except for certain things, as left clicking will block in itself and then counter attacking it quicker. I have heard that right clicking is used for parrying instead of blocking, yet for me still using the solitary left mouse button to do everything is a bit easier, but then again I need a lot more practice. All these things about the combat could be improved with a bit of work, and obviously it's not even in early access yet, so slack has to be given. When loaded up the game, it gives you a few options. You can go into battle, into multiplayer, where at this stage you will fight in the duel, conquest or epic battle. Obviously there are options for more game modes coming soon. Here you can progress on the leveling up system for new armor and weapons. Or you can go into the training mode, where you'll be able to fight against bots and learn how to use each weapon. I recommend doing this to start with, as finding the correct combination of weapons is vital for your success and learning each of their strengths and weaknesses. Overall, I am very impressed with the game. It has great potential and new game modes are coming soon. This is definitely a game to look out for, and anyone who has not yet entered the giveaway for it should do so. It is released on the 25th of August in early access and is a very reasonable price, so I would definitely recommend the investment. Do you have any other thoughts on the game thus far? What are you most looking forward to? Leave your comments below. But for now, that is the end of the video. Remember to subscribe to the channel for more content on Of Kings and Men. But until then, I will see you in the next one.